Welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today, very excited based on the demand inside the How to Play video for a revenge play. I'm going back up against the Convergence from Grimcoven. This game coming from Awaken Realms. It's landing on GameFound for June 6th. If you want to find the campaign page, I have a link in the pinned comment, video description, and on screen right now as well. If you haven't checked out my prototype unboxing, the how to set up video, or the how to play video, recommend you check those out first before coming to this video to get a better understanding of where we're at right now. Now, with the training wheels completely off, we can dive right into Grimcoven doing a revenge play against the Convergence, but there are two things which I mentioned in the pinned comment and video description of the how to play video that I actually missed that would have actually been good to know, and it's something that I just slipped up on during gameplay, and that is that the minions, when you take them out, actually do provide one Lament to the hunter that took them down. It doesn't show Lament in the bottom right-hand corner, which is why I missed it during gameplay. It's actually in the prototype rules, but buried in there, and so because of that, I didn't take Lament when I actually took out a number of minions, and that certainly had an impact on my character's upgrading. I would have been at a further ahead spot in terms of my characters than I was in that prior play. So going into this revenge play, I'm going to have that as an advantage, which might start to tip things a little bit more towards my side of the equation, knowing full well this is still a very difficult game. Now again, this is a prototype, and you might be questioning, well then why is Lament mentioned here on the Elite and on the boss cards, but not on the minion? And I believe the mindset behind that was, these are reminders that when you take the Elite down or eliminate a boss card, every single hunter gains that much Lament. Whereas with the actual minions, only the hunter that took out the minion gains the one Lament. Now, speaking of Lament, I actually had one Lament during the How to Play video sitting on my Technomancer, and I mentioned at the time that I had the choice to either place it in the corruption track or not. But here's the thing to note. In the evolution step, you can, with a fully fledged character, choose to place this Lament in the corruption track if you wish, or you can choose not to, but if you do choose not to, it gets discarded, including if you have multiple of them in there. So you cannot hold them from one evolution step to the next evolution step. Now that miss from the prior video really didn't have much of an impact because just placing one corruption in the track really didn't trigger anything from the cards of the corruption deck that would have done anything nasty, and things already went south in that one anyway, so we are all squared away at this point. Now we know a couple extra things, and one of them gives us a nice benefit. We'll be able to hopefully focus on taking some minions out early in order to get our characters upgraded. The last mention I want to make is around the setup, because you might be wondering, well, did you leave things the same? Did you change anything? All I've done is anything that was randomized, things like the corruption deck, the event deck, the boss attack cards, things of that nature have all been reshuffled and placed back out. But in terms of the environment tiles, in terms of the environment cards, which is a randomized way that the scenario can actually change, I left everything exactly the same. Now, when you're playing the game and you end up losing like I did in the How to Play video, you might actually set up the scenario with different environment cards, so you have a completely different experience. But being that this is a revenge play, I wanted to come at it with the exact same setup, knowing a couple new things and also learning from my absolutely painful demise to try to see if I can pull off a victory. So without further ado, let's see if we can do this, or if I get pounded into the ground and die once more. Going into the first round, the Hunter's phase, we skip down to the refresh step, so we're going to roll our dice and see what we get for the Technomancer. Now, as much as I'd love to go for the double shield icon, the gear symbol, to give my Technomancer a 4 and any ally in range 0 to 1 gaining 2, which would be a huge defensive boost off the start, I've got other plans. I'm going to go ahead and do a sprint right through the portal next to me. Technomancer's going through the portal on the right, up top, and it's going to come down 3 spaces right in the same space as a minion. Then while in that exact same space, I'm going to go ahead and use my other icon of a die, which is the gear symbol and the arrow, in order to pull off my Tesla staff, dealing of a damage in range 0. And the Technomancer gains a Lament, something I wasn't doing in the How to Play for those minions, and now it's going to use another die for the gear symbol, which is its special ability for the Technomancer to move 1 space. Now you'll see in a moment how I have to discard that gear symbol die to the right-hand side of my Technomancer board, because that is a special ability right on the Technomancer tile on the board. So I've moved over. I now have 2 Lament already, which is going to get me an evolution going into the next evolution step, which is awesome. So pretty good overall. You'll see the Tesla staff usage up here for the damage. We got some armor going on down here. Here's the discarded dice on the right-hand side for this ability right here. During your turn, you may discard a gear symbol to move 1 space, which helped me get that Lament. And we've got 1 more die left to spend. I'm going to use it as an assist. I want to give the Gunslinger a boost. Now, as we can see, this turn, the Dust Devil's going to trigger has focus keywords on it, which mean if we don't do 2 damage or more onto this card specifically, then it's going to be moving a total of 6 spaces, which is way too fast and way too dangerous, being that it would be rolling 3 dice in range 0 to 1. Not good. So I'm going to have the Gunslinger with a 2 damage attack deal with that situation. The first action token is going to be used to move. He's going to move into the same spot as a minion, which is actually hiding behind the boss. So the Gunslinger moves into position to make sure he's in line of sight. Again, line of sight drawn from the center of one hex to the center of another, but has to be drawn through the middle of an edge of the hexagon. So we are in line right now, 1 range away. We're shooting at the boss. We're going to go ahead and do the dealing of 2 damage at range 1 and in line of sight. And for those not familiar with the deputy board, here's a look at it. It's a streamlined version of a full character, so we're using these tokens instead, and one of them came from the assist I gave from the Technomancer. So he has 3 this time around, typically has 2. So it's nice to have those extra dice to be able to give away to give the Gunslinger an extra boost. So I did a move, and then I did the dealing of 2 damage. We're going to place that on the Dust Devil card. Sorry, Convergence, you're not using your focus skill this time around. Last but not least, I need to get the Gunslinger out of there. I have 1 action token left. I'll use it on the sprint. We're going to go straight through that portal. That's going to do it for the very first Hunter's turn. We now go into the enemy phase. Step number 1 is the event. We don't have one currently revealed, so we do not draw one at this point. Next up, the minions are going to activate. So we'll go through the card from the top to the bottom. Charge is the first thing they'll do. If there's a Hunter in range 0 to 3, they're going to move 3 spaces and attack range 0 with 2 white dice. So bad news is both of my Hunters are going to be taking a minion attack here, which is not all that great. We're going to go ahead and roll first for the Technomancer, who at least has 2 defense to put up against whatever comes at me here. And based on the card, 2 symbols are nasty. One's going to deal a burn and one's going to deal a wound. Let's see how we do. Based on the minion card here, we're going to have a burn coming to us and a wound, but I have a shield of 2, so the shield is used fully, not partially, always used fully in defense, to block the 1 damage, but the burn's coming through. Defensive token has been discarded to block the wound, and we're going to have the burn condition go in. Next up, we have the Gunslinger way up top, has no defense whatsoever, so hopefully not too bad here. I really don't like burns. 1 of each. That's going to do it for the 2 minions that were close enough to us to be able to do the charge action on the card, but the other one, the third one that's still alive, cannot do the charge. There is nobody close enough to do the charge too, so it's going to bulk up instead. Now the bulk up action for this minion, which is way out here, has not only 2 defense going on it, but also moving 3 spaces, and will try to attack in range 0 to 1 with a single white die. Right now there's a tie between both Hunters it could prioritize because they're both 5 spaces away, so you go to Corruption, but there isn't any Corruption to determine the tiebreaker, so at this point we get to choose. I decided to move the minion towards the Gunslinger because now it's in the Rushing River. And here's the funny thing, I forgot to actually activate the Rushing River when I should have. Now, there's no gameplay impact besides the tornado should be 2 spaces further down the river. So just for clarity's sake, there is a card up there, an environment card at the very top of the river, which tells us at the end of every Hunter's turn, everything on the river is going to move down the river 1 space. So I missed that when I finished both my Hunter's turns, but it's been resolved. There wasn't any gameplay impact. At this point, the minion that I moved to the river is going to try to attack something around it in range 0 to 1. There is nothing to attack, so it's not going to happen. Next up, we have the Elite. This one here is going to try and do a Flaming Bomb throw if there is a Hunter in range 0 to 3, which there definitely is not. It's way over in the top left-hand corner. So it's going to instead try to do a run-up bomb throw. It's going to do a move 2 and then attack all Hunters in range 0 to 2. So basically, when it can't do the top one fully, it'll do the second one as much as it can. And that mindset's exactly the same with the minion card as well. You have to be able to do the top one fully, or you skip to the second one and do as much of that second bullet as you can. The Elite's going to move 2 spaces towards the Hunters and tries to attack anybody in range 0 to 2, but cannot, so that's not going to happen. We can move on to step 4. Dust Devil is going to activate. Again, it does not get the focus keyword rows because we put 2 damage at least on this card. It's going to move 2 spaces guaranteed, though. And so it's heading right towards the Technomancer. The next thing the boss will do is attack any Hunter in range 0 to 1 from the boss with 3 white dice, which is why positioning was key with this. And that's not going to happen because I put a strategy in place to try to get 2 Lament on my Technomancer as fast as possible and was able to pull it off and avoid a nasty attack from the boss. I've gone ahead and moved the Corruption deck out of the way. Shouldn't have been sitting here because I need a space to place the Dust Devil card when it was discarded. This is the discard pile to the right, and the cards just move along. So we have a new one here coming down the pipes. And again, when you're placing damage on the boss, if you haven't seen any playthroughs yet, you can choose to place damage on this slot right here or this slot. So there's benefits to actually hitting the one further back because it will exist on the actual boss board longer, giving you a higher chance to tally up more damage against it before it gets discarded and all the damage that's on the card disappears, like what just happened with the Dust Devil. The overarching goal to kill the boss is to eliminate its cards. Eliminate it by meeting its health requirements, by doing that much damage to that card, eliminates it rather than discarding it, meaning that this deck becomes thinner and thinner and thinner until you just have a single card left to take out. Moving right along, we head to the time track, the final step for the enemy phase, and we're going to go from the start position in the middle here of the tornado look, and we're going to go up to the new event. We're going to draw a new event. The event we got is called Overthrow. Each hunter may gain 2 unblockable damage to move 1 space. Now, it's important to note you don't resolve this right now unless the text specifically says resolve immediately. But later on, when we come back to the event step, this will be something we can do. Start of a brand new round. First thing we do is move the first player token, which I'm just going to keep in mind. It's the Gunslinger. Not going to matter for the most part in solo play, but there are times where it can crop up. Technomancer here going into the evolution step because we have Lament. So we do have 2 Lament. We're going to go ahead and place them in because it'll hit an unlock, which allows us to evolve. Every time you evolve, you get to draw 2 cards, take a look at what they are, and you can decide to either take one of them and keep it, placing the other one at the bottom of the evolution deck for your character, or you can decide to place both cards at the bottom of the deck and take any die you choose. Even though both those cards are pretty tempting, I'm instead going to take a die. I think this is going to be good for me because now when I spend a die to give an assist to the Gunslinger, it's not going to hurt the Technomancer as much. Plus, this die is really good for the Tesla staff in terms of triggering some of the attacks. Also has the ability to land this icon as well. Both hunters have been refreshed. Let's roll the dice for the Technomancer, see how we do with an additional die in the pool. Moving into the corruption step, I'm going to go ahead and use this symbol I just rolled in order to do a cleanse. Now, for every one of these icons on a die that you discard in this way, you can discard that many status conditions, so long as it's not the hunger status condition. And it's a great time to get rid of it because it triggers right before the hunter's turn, which would be right after the cleanse step. So I would have got some damage on the Technomancer, but for now, the Technomancer is damage-free. Now, it's a different story over here for the Deputy Gunslinger because I don't get that opportunity because I don't have dice with this particular character, so the burn is going to put 1 damage on it. We're going to have to actually do a cleanse in order to get the Gunslinger to get rid of that burn condition. Now, my main strategy right now, early in the game, is to try to get as much Lament as possible through pickups off the board or taking out minions in order to kind of ramp things up. But here's where that can kind of go sideways because certain boss cards will force you to potentially strategize differently than what you might want to actually do. So in this case, this card coming up here later in the turn is going to be nasty for any hunter that is really far away from the boss. At 4+ range, 3 white dice. And if you look at the icons and what it's doing, it's going to be dealing 3 damage and a burn or 1 burn or 2 damage. And if you get like 3 symbols, that can be a devastating amount. And on top of that, you also have this focus that can trigger if there's no damage on this card to give everybody an additional white die on top of it. So depending on how close you can get to the boss, you can actually start reducing those dice down. So I'm going to start off with a Technomancer. I'm going to have him kill the minion that's in his space. We can't have a minion that close to where the boss is. If we plan to get close to the boss, let's deal with it. I use the top slot of the Tesla Staff card in order to pull off a damage 1, range 0 attack, and I gained a Lament. After that attack, we're going to go ahead and use this Gear Armor slot here to gain 2 defense. I'm going to go ahead and use an assist here for my Gunslinger to give an additional action token over. So this one will go in the assist slot. We have 2 more dice to use. I'm going to use 1 for movement and 1 to do the second attack on my Tesla Staff. So this will give me 2 movement, which I'll move 2 down towards the Lament, which is close to Technomancer. I'll be right beside the boss, and then I can go ahead and deal 1 damage in range 0 to 2. All the dice are in place. Now I'll show you exactly how things panned out on the game board. The Technomancer is going to move south 2 positions, grabbing that Lament. And the 1 damage going against the boss is going to go in the next turn slot, which is a Cyclonic Spear. You might be wondering why I'm placing the damage there, because I've got myself an opportunity here to potentially go after a card that's lower health than other cards I've seen so far, plus the fact we're forced to get close to the boss this turn. It could be the right time to start really trying to get that next one going. So we're going to place 1 damage right here from the Technomancer. That ends the Technomancer's turn, so everyone on the rushing river is moving south. I still have the Gunslinger left. I'm going to have the Gunslinger go ahead and do a sprint through the portal. Next, I'm going to deal my 2 damage attack at range 1 in line of sight, which I'm going to place on the this turn card. So that's going to stop the focus keyword from triggering during this turn. And now I have a much tougher decision to make right now. So there's 1 more token to spend. I could make another 1 damage attack and maybe even put it on the Cyclonic Spear for the next turn, which would bump that one up to 2. So I'd have 2 damage on both cards, which is actually not bad and kind of gets me going in the right direction. Or I could use my action token to cleanse away the burn that I have, or I could use it to bump myself 2 armor. With my final action for the Gunslinger, I'm going to choose to gain the armor. I want to get ready for any damage that might be coming towards my characters and try to avoid them taking too much too fast, especially when they're being bold at this point. Now, another reason I decided this is because when you choose to place an action token in the cleanse slot, you can cleanse away 2 conditions. So only having 1 burn isn't really a good justification to go ahead and cleanse right now, knowing that this next attack coming at me, which I'm going to have to take some form of dice from the boss, might even give me another burn condition, which would make cleansing next time much more beneficial. So armor right now makes a lot more sense. Up here on the boss board, we have 2 damage to avoid the focused for the boss, which is nice on this turn, but we're also working towards that other card and getting 6 damage on it. Another hunter turn ends, which means the river is rushing yet again. And that's good news for us because it places this minion with 2 defense on it at the elbow of the river, which is further away from my hunters, which is great news. Into the enemy phase we go. Step number 1, we actually have an event revealed, so let's go ahead and deal with it. It says each hunter may gain 2 unblockable damage to move 1 space. No thank you. Moving on to the minions, we only have 2 minions in play at this point, and one of them is on the river, the other one is way up at a portal, so neither of them are within 3, so neither of them will be doing the charge, but they will be bulking up, but the one on the river is already bulked up to a max of 1, so can't do that, but it will try to move 3 spaces towards us and do an attack against us, hence the reason why I got some defense going. The one way up at the top north is very far away, and even when it moves 3, it will not be close enough. So here's the current state, 1 on the river, 1 up top north. Here's how it looks after they start moving through their bulk up action. Again, 1 gaining some armor because it didn't have 1. There is 1 within range 1 of my hunters, so that is the one that's going to be attacking. 1 white die is going to be rolled against my Technomancer because it has the most corruption out of the 2. So let's go ahead and roll and see how we do. It rolled behind it, but it is a scratch symbol. Scratch symbol is 1 damage. I have 2 armor or 2 defense, so that negates that 1 damage. The elite is up next and feels left out of the action. It's going to go ahead and try and do his top one, which it will not be able to do because no hunters in range 0-3. It's going to do a run-up bomb throw. Now it tries to attack all hunters in range 0-2 in line of sight with 1 white die, but there are none. So far, roughly so good. We're going to go on to the boss step here. So we're going to go ahead and be rolling 1 white die for each hunter in range 0-1, because that's where our hunters are currently sitting. So we'll start with the Gunslinger, who does have 2 defense to use to his advantage. Let's see how it goes. We got ourselves the scratch. That's going to be dealing 2 damage, which gets blocked by the defense that I put on. Likely not the same equation going on for the Technomancer because I have no more defense thanks to the minion picking away at me. Let's roll the die and see how we do here for the Technomancer. We got a scratch, so that is 2 damage. Now, because we were able to put 2 damage on the card, the focus, which would have had an attack on each hunter on the map regardless of where they're at, with an additional white die for each of them, that doesn't happen. Good news. Shuffling the boss cards down the row, we've discarded the Maelstrom card and the 2 damage is gone off of it, unfortunately. The Cyclonic Spear keeps the 1 damage we had from here when it moved over, and a new Airburst card in the next turn slot. Now we're going to go ahead and activate all tornadoes. In the prior clip, right underneath the time track is how to resolve the tornado. So the first thing we do is we're looking for the first resolvable effect. So the first one is, if any hunters in range 0-1, attack that hunter with 3 white dice. Nasty. Glad we are not in that situation. Next one is, if any hunters in range 2+, move the tornado twice. Now in this case, both of my hunters are in the same space, so there was 2 spots this tornado could potentially go to as it makes its way toward us. It could have gone from here to here or here to here. I chose to keep it on the river because, well, it has the advantage of being pushed further south. New round begins. First player marker moves, which essentially means it's back to the Technomancer at this point. Evolution step happens, and guess what? We have the Lament we need to get up to the next unlock. These two cards seem pretty cool. The one on the left here, extra plating. So after you remove a boss attack card, you can gain 4 defense. That's huge. And technically, if we grab this early, would happen maybe if we survive, more often than not. But the Electro Gauntlet here is pretty cool too, because it gives me something I don't currently have, which is the ability to deal more than 1 damage at a time. This one can deal 2 damage in range 0. Then if you remove the boss attack card, you may refresh a die. That's pretty awesome. And then down below, it has a weapon bonus that you can trigger with the gear symbol as long as you have it attached right here. So basically, as long as you have the gear die sitting in this slot while this is connected to here, which it would be after I take it, then you get the effect below, which says if the boss is in line of sight, increase the maximum range of this action by 2. This one is very tempting. Higher damage output, also the ability to increase range. This sounds exactly what the Technomancer needs. Now this is a tad embarrassing, but I did mention it on screen when it happened. I forgot to go ahead and resolve corruption cards when I should have. So we're going to go ahead retroactively and resolve them. So we only missed the prior round, round 2. So we're going to go ahead and resolve them right now. And in round 2, we had 0 corruption for the Gunslinger and we had 2 for the Technomancer. So let's go ahead and find out what the Gunslinger has. The Gunslinger is A-OK, nothing happening there. Next one off the top, anything for the Technomancer? Yes, reshuffle the corruption deck, so not bad at all. All right, for round number 3, the first player marker is technically on the Technomancer, so we'll draw first for the Technomancer right now. And it's a 0 to 2. Actually, we're not in that range. We're in 3 to 4 for the Technomancer. It says move 2 spaces towards the closest Lament, then reshuffle the corruption deck. That actually doesn't sound bad. Actually, maybe that's not so great, as I was kind of hoping to stay put where I was to be able to hit the boss. This card kind of messes with that. The closest Lament is right here, so 2 spaces heading towards that one. Back to the corruption deck we go to find out what happens to the Gunslinger, if anything at all. Nothing. Both hunters have been refreshed. Let's go ahead and roll some dice, find out what the Technomancer has to work with. The Gunslinger still has the burn condition, so unfortunately takes 1 hit from the burn. While playing this boss battler, you're always building up to something epic for a window of time that you can do something incredible. Well, this is that window. We're going to start off by using an action on the Gunslinger, who's going to go ahead and deal 2 damage at range 1 and line of sight to the boss. And we are absolutely going to throw it on the Cyclonic Spear to bring it up to a total of 3 damage. Next up, the Technomancer is going to go ahead and use the top die here to do some movement. And is going to run right into the same space as the boss, use the top die, this one right here, in order to pull off the Tesla Staff, 1 damage at range 0. That's a total of 4 damage on the boss card for this turn, which is awesome. We need 2 more. We're going to use the Electro Gauntlet. Now, when you look at the Tesla Staff, you'll see a number of attacks across it. We have this one here we just did. We have this one. We also have this one right here. Now, if we place a gear symbol die here, we gain the effects mentioned down here. But as of right now, I haven't paid for that, so I do not get those effects when I'm actually making a kind of weapon action. So I'm going to still take a weapon action. I'm just going to only take advantage of this one right here. You can pay it by putting a die in this slot or pay these 2 dice to do it. I'm going to go ahead and use my double, which I got when I rolled, which is pretty awesome, to go right here, dealing 2 damage in range 0, which is going to do the 2 damage necessary to take out the boss card. And because we did that, it says that we get to refresh 1 die. And guess what? We can refresh the one that's sitting right here. And just like that, we've successfully taken out the very first boss card. That is 6 damage, which means this card is now removed from play. There is a card underneath of it, which is going to trigger during this turn coming up, but it's not going to be as bad. It feels pretty awesome to eliminate the very first boss attack card, and by doing so, we also gain the Lament on the card for each hunter, which is going to be 3 for each hunter. We're now going to go ahead and roll the orange die, thanks to the effect on the Tesla Staff, which was actually the Gauntlet. We're going to roll this die to refresh it, put it in our available pool. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that I'm going to go ahead and do some more attacks against the boss while we're up close and personal. So let's go ahead and use this one right here. We're going to do the Tesla Staff attack once again in range 0, dealing a damage. This time we're going to throw it on the Airburst card in the next turn slot. I'm not done yet. We're going to go ahead and do another attack dealing 1 damage, range 0 to 2 against the boss. And that's another damage added to the next turn boss card. Now, like any hero would do, we're going to go ahead and sprint. Get the heck out of here. We're going to use that orange die that we rolled. We're going to place in the sprint. It's going to allow us to move 3. We're going straight through the portal. And we're going to send the Technomancer to the west side of the game board, arriving right next to the carriage and some Lament. My final die for the Technomancer is going to be used as an assist to give an action to the Gunslinger. So the Gunslinger has 2 left over, already used 1 to deal 2 damage earlier, has 2 left and is going to use 1 to cleanse that burn away. Just before we do that though, the Technomancer's turn is done, so the tornado is going to go south on the river. Now let's clean up the Gunslinger's dashboard. So we'll choose to do an action to cleanse, getting rid of the burn token here. That's good news, no longer causing wounds. Last but not least, the Gunslinger is going to also sprint through the portal as fast as possible. Now when the Gunslinger does this, it's a bit closer to the portal on the right, so it has more movement to use. It has 2 movement normally, the sprint gives +1, so it has 3. So the Gunslinger is going to make it all the way through the portal and to the carriage space, and when we're in the carriage space, we can choose to discard it to open the carriage, draw and resolve a secret card 32. The prototype has 3 secret card 32, so I shuffled them up. We're going to draw the top one and see what we get. Let's find out. We got ourselves, it states, at second glance, this carriage looks menacing. That does not sound good. So we get to roll a white die. So the 3 icons we have on the card is the top one says you found dead bodies and some treasure. You get to place a random treasure token in your space. That sounds nice. The other one, which is actually on the die right now, is bait and trap. Gain 3 unblockable damage and 2 lament. Hopefully that's not an omen of bad things to come. And then the wound scratch says old bandages and dressings. Heal 3. Each other hunter in range 1 heals 2. That's literally perfect for this situation right now as we both came through the portal running from the boss. So here's hoping for the scratch, because I think, if memory serves, it is the highest odds one on the die. So let's hope for that. Let's go ahead and roll and see how we do. Hopefully I can keep this die roll on screen. Yep, we got the scratch, which means we get the healing. It is almost too good to be true. We have 3 damage exactly on the Gunslinger and 2 damage on the Technomancer, so everything has been healed up. That carriage could not have come at a better time. We've resolved the card. It says to discard this card, the carriage token, and the carriage card below. And that, my friend, was an absolutely epic turn. At this point, both of our hunters are done. Nobody on the river can move any further south anyway, so we're good there. We're now heading into the enemy phase. Going into this enemy phase, a very tempting decision here. Step number 1, we can resolve the overthrow. Each hunter may gain 2 unblockable damage to move a space. So I could choose the Technomancer to move 1 space to take 2 damage in order to have a total of 4 lament instead of 3. Meaning, when I go to the evolution step in the near future, I could actually have an evolution twice, which would be very nice. The downside of this, though, is it puts me a little close to the elite, and the elite will actually come around the corner and be able to be in range to do some damage to me. Is it worth it? That's the tough call. So hypothetically, if I chose to take 2 unblockable damage and move over here and take the Lament, then when the Elite step happens, on step 3, the Elite would be looking at range 0 to 3, but in line of sight. So it has range 0 to 3 from where it is, but it does not have line of sight at all. It can't draw from the middle of the hex to the middle of my hex, going through the side of one of the hexes. There's too much terrain in the way and everything else blocking it. So then it would do the run-up bomb throw, so it would move twice around here and try to hit me for 1 white die, which isn't horrible, but that 1 die roll can be 3 unblockable damage, 2 unblockable damage, and if any damage was dealt this way, you deal 3 burns. So it's pretty nasty. So it's probably not worth it. It's very tempting though. The game is good at that. We now head into the minions' turn. There's only 2 in play currently, and this is what's awesome. They can't charge because there's no hunters in range 0 to 3, so they try to bulk up, but they already have defenses, so really we're just kind of burning through their turn, and they're not doing much. They're going to move 3 spaces and then try to attack within range 0 to 1, which they certainly won't be able to do, but they're going to start heading towards us. Minions are done. We move to the Elite, who is going to go ahead and try and do a flaming bomb throw, but can't find anybody in range 0 to 3 to do that to. So we're going to skip that one, go to the run-up bomb throw. It's going to move 2, then it's going to attack all hunters in range 0 to 2 and line of sight. So I misspoke earlier when I said range, I think 0 to 1 seconds ago. It was actually 0 to 2. He moves around the terrain piece, gets in line of sight, and is now set his sights on the Technomancer, who definitely is in range 0-2. So rolling 1 die, this could be nasty. Here we go. Got ourselves that symbol. Is it anything? It's going to deal 2 damage, and if any damage was dealt this way, 3 burn. Ouch. So we're getting 2 damage and 3 burn status tokens. The Technomancer was feeling pretty good about being healed up to all of a sudden be burned and damaged all at the same time. Heading on to the boss card, this one is going to be a much more pared down version of an attack for this turn because of the fact we took out one of the boss attack cards. So this one says, attack each hunter in line of sight from the boss with 2 white dice. So very simplistic. If you're able to take down the card into this turn slot, then you don't have much to deal with there. And because we ran so far away, we are A-okay. Airburst is going to be the next one causing us grief here. We do have 2 damage on it. It says it's going to attack each hunter in range 0 to 2 from the boss with 2 white dice. It's also going to try to teleport to the nearest Lament space closest to the hunter with the most corruption. So yeah, it's going to come flying over. Up to the time track we go, and we're going to be moving to spawning of minions. Now we currently have 2 minions on the game board. When you spawn minions with 2 characters, like I'm controlling right now, 4 new minions are coming in, and how the spawns work, if you didn't watch the how to play, is essentially the 2 minions that are already in count for spots 1 and 2 listed on the game board. You'll see numerical values all over the game board from 1 to 8. So the first one and the second one are not where the new 4 minions are going to come in at. They will start at the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th positions on the board. All right then, so the board just went from 0 to 100 real fast. We got all kinds of enemies all over the place. We're now heading into round number 4. Technically, the first player marker would be the gunslinger at this point. We go to the evolution step, and we definitely can do some evolving for both characters. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, when you get Lament on the deputy board, you have to slot it into your corruption track. You don't get a choice of not doing so. So this is going to get us to the unlock position. And when you unlock something for the deputy, things work a little bit differently, but very similar. So basically, you're going to draw 1 card off the top of the deck. So we'll go ahead and draw to see what we get. We have a double shot here. This one says you can deal a damage at range 0, deal another damage at range 2 to 4, and in line of sight. Passive, when using a bullet, your target does not need to be in line of sight. So we have the option to take this card, adding to what we could potentially do, or we could say, you know what, I'd rather have another universal marker to be able to pull off more on the gunslinger's turn. Now, as much as I absolutely love this card and think it's really cool, including the passive ability, I think I just need to pump up how many of these I actually have, because maybe not in all instances will I be able to get an assist from the Technomancer, but even if I do, having 4 is really good in terms of being able to get some shields going, cleansing, all that kind of stuff. It's going to come in handy. Maybe I'll take the universal marker this time around, the next time we'll go for the card. Now let's go ahead and evolve the Technomancer. Now as you can see here, Lament-wise, I can choose to place as much as I want in the corruption track and discard the rest. So I could choose to just put 2 in here and go, I want the unlock and that's it. And I want to stop right here because maybe I don't want to push myself into a range that'll show up on the corruption deck card when I draw it later on. But because I'm going to try to push things and try to get up to the next unlock faster, or hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll just put it all in here. So we're going to be able to draw some cards here and potentially either choose between them, or we can go for a die. We have Stimulant Injection here. Once per round, you may gain 1 unblockable damage or discard 2 defense to choose one. You can refresh an action, refresh a die, or you can gain a tactic token. So we can also gain a tactic token by just placing a die in the tactic slot, and we get a token right here. That token can then be spent in order to reroll dice of any amount in our available area to basically fish for icons we want to find, maybe even inside of a given turn, or potentially just to save it for a really bad roll in the future. The other option we have here is very cool. This is an armor upgrade. It's called Repulse. This one has 2 options to pay for it. You can deal 2 damage in range 0 to 1, then move all enemies in range 0 to 1 by up to 3 spaces. That sounds extremely useful. And then down below, if we actually pay the gear symbol cost, we get this bonus that says you may move by up to 3 spaces any enemies in range 0 to 1 or any allies in range 0 to 1. This has lots of flexibility, and for that reason, I have to go with this one. This time I chose a card. Next time, which is going to be very, very soon in the near future, I'm going to probably go for a die. It's time for the corruption step. Gunslinger's going to draw first. Let's go ahead and see what happens. A 2 to 8. That is going to be in the range of the gunslinger. It says lose 2 corruption or heal 2, then gain 1 hunger. It's a weird one to get because I can't heal anything I don't have, so I'm going to have to go with losing 2 corruption. So we'll take this off the track like so, and we're going to gain a hunger condition, which I'm not looking forward to because that gives me trauma from the how to play video, which was how things ended the last time. Now in that situation, I had much less health overall. In this one, not feeling the pressure as much as I've done much better job of mitigating some of the nastiness up front. I highly doubt the Technomancer's getting a free pass here because has 7 corruption currently, and what does it say? Gain 1 week, then reshuffle the corruption deck. All right, so the weak condition has now been added to the pool of other burn conditions that I already have. Now, what is weak? Weak says after refreshing your dice, reroll all dice with double symbols once, then discard one weak token. That's pretty annoying. And of course, the game would throw that at me right before the refresh step, which is happening right now. Let's go ahead and see what we get. Doubles are going to be a problem for me now. I'm forced to reroll any double icon symbols, so we're going to reroll these two right here, see what we get. And then this is going to be discarded. We're now going to the cleanse step, and this is where I have to think, because I could go ahead and discard both of these dice during this cleanse step, putting them to the right side of the board. That would get rid of two of the burn conditions, meaning when we go to the hunter's turn, I only take 1 damage, but I still have 1 burn token left. Or I could choose to go ahead and use one of these to get rid of one of the burn tokens, then take 2 damage in there, and then use this one in the cleanse to get rid of all the burn conditions and not have them come back. And I'm actually kind of leaning towards that, I think. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to burn one of these to the discarded side of the pool, which means one of these will come away. I'm going to take 2 damage for the 2 burn tokens that I have in here, and also the hunger for the gunslinger is now going to trigger. For those not familiar with how the hunger status works, at the beginning of the hunter's phase, move X spaces, X being the number of hunger tokens you have, towards the closest ally, which means 1 in this case, perfect, and then deal 1 damage to each ally in range 0, and X is the number of hunger tokens you have, as I mentioned. So, unfortunately, the more of these tokens you have, the worse it gets, but in this case, it's still bad. It's still moving 1 space into my space. Gunslinger is coming in, taking a bite out of the Technomancer. You have to love allies that come over and bite you every so often. In this case, the Technomancer now has 5 damage and 2 burn status tokens. The Gunslinger just has the hunger status token. We're going to have to work on getting rid of all of those statuses. We'll start things off with the Technomancer this time. He's going to take an action to cleanse. He has the icon that matches, so he'll go ahead and place this in, getting rid of both burn conditions. Next up, he's going to provide an assist to the Gunslinger by using his double shield. He's going to place that right in here, and 1 action token over. I'm going to change up my strategy for this round. Instead of going after the boss card that's in the this turn slot, even though it has 2 damage on it, I'm going to be happy that the focus won't be triggering, and I'm going to try to get as far away from the boss as possible because the Hurricane Vortex is up next, which is the one that's based on distance. So we might as well just get out of there and also deal with some minions, plus get the Gunslinger kind of caught up to where the Technomancer is in terms of corruption. So maybe we have the Gunslinger here take a couple shots at some minions nearby. So we're going to go ahead right now, and well, I guess I actually need to cleanse away my hunger, so that actually wouldn't be a bad idea. So let's go ahead and do a cleanse. Even though I'm only getting rid of this status token, we can do so right now, so that's good news gone. And then we're going to go ahead and deal 1 damage in range 2 to 4 and in line of sight, and deal 2 damage at range 1 in line of sight. We're going to use the 2 damage attack to hit this one right here, and the 1 damage attack for this one right here. 2 more Lament for the Gunslinger, and he's going to use his final action to go ahead and sprint through the portal. The Gunslinger is going to come through the portal, and I'm not going to use the rest of my movement because I don't want to get any closer out there towards minions or the elite. I'm not giving them any opportunity to hit me for extra damage. Gunslinger's turn is done, so the minion on the river moves down south 1 position. Gunslinger's going to use a die in order to get 2 movement to run down and grab the Lament. I needed 1 Lament to get myself to an evolution coming up in the future step. So this will go in the movement slot, and then we're going to use this one here to sprint back through the portal and get back to the Gunslinger. So a very quick turn for both of my hunters, but a productive one because now we can get into the evolution step in the future and have some nice bonuses. We have 1 more die left with the Technomancer. I'm going to use it to gain a tactic token. We use all the basic actions for the Technomancer this time around, and this is going to give me a tactic token placed right here. Hunter's turn is done. Everybody on the rushing river moves down 1 position. We now move into the enemy phase. Step number 1, we have this event still in play, and it's not going to change until we have another game effect that tells us otherwise, or until the time track gets around to the new event slot. And over here we have minions. Minions are going to go ahead and try to charge, but none of them are close enough to 100 to do it, so instead they're going to try and do as much of the bulk up as they can. First step is them all gaining defense. There's only 2 minions that don't have 2 defense already, so those ones will get defense tokens, making them more annoying to take out later, and they're all going to move 3 spaces. Defense has gone up across the board for the minions. And now they try to attack in range 0 to 1 with 1 white die, but there's nobody in range. Elite is up next. It's going to be a range 0 to 3 bomb throw, but it has to be in line of sight, and they're currently not in line of sight, so that is not going to resolve. It's going to be a run-up bomb throw. It's going to move twice, and then attack all hunters in range 0 to 2 with line of sight with 1 white die. The elite rounds the corner with 2 movement and tries to draw line of sight because it has range, and it cannot because it has to be along the center edge of the hex. So, no attack happening from the elite. Moving on to the boss card, it's going to be Air Burst, so we're going to attack each hunter in range 0 to 2 from the boss with 2 white dice. Not happening because nobody's that close. Next, it's going to teleport to the Lament space closest to the hunter with the most corruption. Well, it's going to come right towards, it's going to be right beside us in the end. The good news is the focus thing will not trigger because we have at least 1 damage on the boss card per character in the game. So because we had those 2 on from prior, no focus trigger. 1 minute things look clear, the next minute the boss is right on top of us. Airburst is discarded from the this turn slot, including the 2 damage that was on it. Unfortunately, the Hurricane Vortex is in the this turn slot, and we now have the Cyclonic Spear here the next turn. We now move on to the next step of the time track, and we get to see a stage card for the first time here on the channel. The stage card revealed says Hellish Tornado. Essentially, this card now replaces everything that was over here as the basic instructions for tornadoes. And as you can see from the card, it is not looking good. There's a lot of nastiness coming from that one. The good news is it's not going to trigger until we activate all tornadoes over here. New round to play. I've actually got the first player marker out here just to make it more visual in terms of who is going first. It's going to be the Technomancer now. And we head into an evolution step, so we're going to go ahead and slot this in because I want to gain that upgrade. Here are the 2 cards I have to choose from, and to be completely honest, I'd rather go for a die because I'm getting into a spot here where I don't want to have status conditions really affecting me negatively, so I think bringing a die in like this, an additional one that has the ability to get cleanse, and also the ability to get the gear symbol more often because it will tie into my Tesla staff, giving me extra effects on things I already have. I think this is the right call. And the Gunslinger has to slot their Lament in as well. That's also going to get me to an evolution, and we're going to go ahead and see what we get. We have 1 card we can choose, and Universal Marker. Ooh, this one says Concentrate. Gain a bullet for each minion in range 0 to 1. That's pretty cool. Down below it says Move, deal 1 damage in range 0 to 1. Move again, then deal 2 damage in range 2 to 4 and in line of sight. That's actually really powerful. I have to take this card. This is just too powerful for the long term. I gotta take it while I have the chance, and then we'll get some more universal markers going on the next evolution. Let's do our corruption step and hope that the Technomancer doesn't take too much of a beating. We're up to 8 with the Technomancer being first player. We draw first. We got ourselves gaining of 1 hunger for the Technomancer. Not good. So 1 status token for the Technomancer there. All done. Go to the Gunslinger who has 3 corruption. Let's see. Do we land on the track? We do not, so we're safe there. Both hunters refreshed, and 1 additional die going forward for the Technomancer thanks to the recent evolution. Let's see how we do. During this cleanse step, we are not able to get rid of hunger, even though we have an icon we can discard it to get rid of status tokens. Hunger is not one of them. So now we move into the hunter's turn, so any status conditions that start at the beginning of a hunter's turn trigger, which is the hunger, so the Technomancer is going to take a bite out of the Gunslinger. The Gunslinger now has 1 damage, and the Technomancer has 5 damage and the hunger status, but we want to get rid of that hunger status, so we're going to go ahead and use one of these dies, and the question is, which one should I go ahead and use? Probably, I think, this one. Now, my plan here is to get as far away from the boss as possible because the Hurricane Vortex is going to cause us some grief, and there's no focus keywords on this one, so hitting damage on this card right now doesn't make a lot of sense. It's probably better to go for the Cyclonic Spear. It only has 6 damage, and we can work towards maybe eliminating it. I got myself a strategy here. We're going to go right off the hop here and use this one right here for the assist, giving this to the Gunslinger. Now, the Gunslinger's got a really cool ability that I haven't had the opportunity to use, but now that I have more universal markers and I'm in a position to do some extra damage, let's do it. We're going to go ahead and place one of these universal markers, the one I just gave myself from the Technomancer. We'll place it here for a gaining of a bullet, which is awesome. So the Gunslinger now has an additional bullet. We're now going to go ahead and use this one, deal 2 damage at range 1 in line of sight. And when you deal damage, you can discard any number of bullet tokens that you've acquired either through this ability here or potentially concentrate in the future, where I place 2 tokens in here if I wanted to, and then any minions in range 0 to 1, each one gives me a bullet. So I have a way to really increase how much damage I'm pumping out. But in this case, we gained a bullet. I'll discard it to use it as part of this, and now we have a total of 3 damage being dealt to the boss. My Gunslinger's not going to stop there. He's going to go ahead and use another attack to deal another damage in range 2 to 4 in line of sight. That is a whopping 4 damage, which we're going to place in the Cyclonic Spear, which is great. It'll also stop the focus, but we're not even going to have this card in here anyway because I'm going to blow this thing away. For my last action token with the Gunslinger, I'm going to choose to sprint, getting myself out of the equation, through the portal, and out to the furthest side I can possibly find because of the Hurricane Vortex coming. Thinking ahead, I'm going to have the Gunslinger go through this portal on the right and then wrap around behind it to be further than 3 spaces away from this tornado down south, because there's an effect on the boss card that will certainly make things worse if I'm close to it. In order for the Technomancer to do a really powerful attack with the Electro Gauntlet, I have to be in range 0, so we're going to go ahead and use this one right here for a move. I'll move 1 space into the boss's space. Now, it's worth mentioning that the boss counts for 3 units inside of a single hex, and my hunter going in, which has happened maybe a couple times, counts as the 4th. That's the maximum you can have in the hex. If anybody else moves into the hex with a boss, somebody else other than the boss is pushed out. That's never happened yet, but in this case, we are now inside the same hex. We are now going to pull off this Electro Gauntlet attack, so we're going to go ahead and place these 2 dice like this, damaging it for 2, which is perfect because the ability on the bottom says if you removed a boss attack card, which this attack will, because I'll place this 2 damage on the Cyclonic Spear, I can refresh one of these dice right here. My friends, not just one boss card eliminated, we now have 2 out of the deck. The Technomancer and the Gunslinger both gain 3 Lament, and I get to refresh one of these dice. So I'll go ahead and just pick one. Now, I don't have any reason to cleanse again, but I might want to move, maybe. We'll go ahead and re-roll this one and see what we get. We got ourselves another gear symbol. And that works well. We're going to sprint through the portal and decide whether we want to be out of the range of the tornado or to potentially lift up the defenses of both of my hunters at once. How about we do both? We're going to go ahead through the portal. It's going to cost us 1 move to get to the portal on the top left, and then another one to get through it to here, and the 3rd move will take us right here, and then we're going to go ahead and use the 2 dice I had left over to do a gear armor, the best one possible, 4 defense for the Technomancer and 2 going to the Gunslinger. Both hunters ended their turns at different times, but at each time, nobody was on the river, so no activations there anyway. These steps resolve very easily, so right here, the event, I don't want to take advantage of it, so we're going to pass right by that. Minions are going to activate, and they're just going to simply bulk up, because they're way too far away to do a charge. They already all have defense, so they're just going to move, try to attack, which they can't, so they'll do the movement, and that's it. Over here to the elite, same thing, cannot do the bomb throw, the flaming bomb throw, but we'll try to do the run-up. It's going to move 2, then no one will be around for it to attack, nothing else happens. For those first 3 steps, we're just doing a lot of movement. Minions resolve, the elite resolves, now on to the boss. The vortex for the boss is going to trigger, moving each hunter in range 0 to 3 from the boss or from a tornado 2 spaces towards the boss. Good news, based on my strategy of keeping them away from the tornado when I came out of the portal, we're not going to be moved anywhere, which is awesome. Going into the next one, it says deal 7 damage to each hunter on the map, reduced by 1 damage for each space between the boss and that hunter. And guess what? I position myself that we are definitely 7 spaces away from the boss, so we take absolutely no damage. So the Hurricane Vortex card was discarded from the this turn slot. The Wind Razor is now face up because remember we had a blank spot over here as we took out the card here. And then a new card comes in and sits here. We have another Hurricane Vortex. So we're going to be really focused on potentially going through the portal and hitting the boss one more time if we wanted to. We could kind of work on taking this card out, or we could maybe go crazy and try to take away as many of the minions as we possibly can, seeing as they're not going to spawn for a while. We're not completely out of the woods yet because we have a new event coming in. Let's go ahead and move to the next step. Now, this is an event I actually like. Finally, Lament spread. It says resolve immediately, so we do this right now. Place 1 Lament on each space with a Lament symbol in play. 5 Lament locations, each one of them gaining a single Lament. You're not going to hear me complain about that event at all. The great news about that is it states on the card, discard the card. So after we resolve it, we discard it, which means we have no ongoing effect for a little while. First player marker moves back to the Gunslinger, and at this point we now go into an evolution step, and we're certainly going to be evolving both characters. The question I will have for myself on the Technomancer is, it's going to hit a very corrupted space. This center space right here, number 10, is going to force me to flip my board over, and the question is whether I want to do this right now or not. On the Gunslinger side of the equation, we do not get a choice, so we're going to go ahead and place all 3 Lament in, which is going to get us to an unlock symbol, which is awesome. I'm going to draw a card and see what it is, see if we want to take it, but I know I'm kind of aiming for the universal marker. Let's see what we get here. We have Sniper Shot. Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Deal 1 damage in range 1 to 2. If you killed a minion or elite, gain a bullet. Oh, that's pretty good. And then when using a bullet, increase the range of the action by 2. It's also really good, but to be completely honest, I do want to get more of these tokens so I can do more on my turn. So even though that's really cool, I think I'm happy with what I've got here and would love to gain multiple bullets from minions being in range 1. So I think, even though this is kind of tempting, I'm still going to go with the marker. Now during this step, I'm going to choose only to place 1 inside the track. I do not want to turn fully corrupted just yet because there are some detriments to doing it. It's good in the way of health. My health will boost up and you get an extra die, but the downside is now during the corruption deck pulls, you have the possibility to spread corruption faster and it's going to impact your allies and yourself, that kind of thing. So I don't want to ramp myself up too much on the corruption too early while I'm still working through boss cards. I've only got 2 out right now. So I'm going to choose to actually discard them here while I have some time because the Gunslinger is still kind of catching up. We're also in a great place for our defense for both characters, which is awesome too. And I think we've got some cards here to actually potentially take out another boss card during this upcoming turn. Let's go ahead and do the roll here for the Technomancer and see how we do on the dice. Now, one thing I'm noticing across the dice, which I'm not overly happy about, is the fact I didn't get any sprint icons, and I need that to be able to get myself through a portal so that I don't take a ton of damage from minions. So I'm going to go ahead right now and actually choose to use my tactic token to re-roll everything here. Now, technically I could keep some things because I can choose which dice I want to actually keep. So looking at what I have, let's see if we want to keep some combinations to do some big time damage. After looking over what I plan to do, I'm going to keep these 4 dice right here, and we're going to re-roll these 3 right here. Let's see how we do. Good thing, we got 1 of those sprints. Now, as much as I'd like to go after the boss, I think it's time with this window, seeing as the boss attack this time around will be a Wind Razor, which is a very light attack from very small distance. It might make sense to come through the portal on this side right now and put all of our attacks in the elite and just wipe it out. The Gunslinger is going to go through the portal, take the Lament that was beside him, it's on his board now, and next we're going to go ahead and gain a bullet using another action token, so 1 bullet, and then we're going to go ahead and do that 2 damage at range 1 line of sight attack, plus discard the bullet, so that's going to be a total of 3 damage going on the elite. Another action marker is going to be used. We're going to deal another damage at range 2 to 4 and in line of sight, so that's going to be a total of 4 damage, and we need 7 to take it down. Gunslinger's turn's done. River would activate, but nothing is on it. As of right now, the tornado's already in the furthest south point. We're going to go ahead and do a sprint for the Technomancer, taking him through the portal right over to the elite. This is where the Technomancer lands, and I really don't want to get any closer to the elite because there's no need to, because I have the ability to use a die, which will allow me on the Tesla staff to get a weapon bonus when I do an attack going forward. I'm going to place that die in the slot, and it says if the boss is in line of sight, increase the maximum range of this attack by a total of 2. So when I choose to go ahead and use an attack from the Tesla staff, now I'm getting this bonus effect of the range increase of 2, which is nice. We're going to go ahead and do this double dagger one here between ranges 0 and 2 is all it's needed to do 1 damage. So we'll go ahead and do that. That's an easy one. And of course, the range increase would make that 0 to 4, but we certainly don't need it right now. And then we're going to go down to the Electro Gauntlet and do our combination that we always love to do. We're going to go ahead and spend the required dice, which is going to be these 2 right here. And that is going to allow us to go ahead and deal 2 damage at range 0. And we get the +2 range because we have this die in here. So that is going to be enough to do the 2 damage to the elite to take it out. And on top of it, we can refresh 1 die of this color, which will be this one right here. We'll go ahead and roll it, and we get this back in the available area. That was a perfect time to go after the elite, as we have a little bit lighter of a boss card up here. The elite has been taken care of, which feels absolutely awesome. So we got 2 cards eliminated from the boss. The elite has been taken down, and I can sense a tide shifting in the game. We also gained 3 Lament on both characters, and that's going to be crazy for the Gunslinger because you can see now we're going to be going over that middle spot on the next evolution step. So we might want to flip both characters in that case, but who knows what kind of fun that's going to lead to. I think I'll go ahead and use this die right here in order to get my tactic token back. Honestly, I'm going to use these last 2 dice just to get positioning perfect for the Technomancer and the Gunslinger to go after the boss in the next round. So what we're going to do is we're going to give 1 die to the Gunslinger, so his turn technically did not end. And of course, we're just going to use this for movement. I'm only going to move 1 space for the Gunslinger to get back to the portal we came through. And then we're going to use this one here for a move on the Technomancer, so they're both shuffling. We'll just use 1 space for each going over to the portal. So I've shifted my hunters from here to the portal space. So both my hunters have moved, and I know I went ahead and did an extra move there with my Gunslinger after saying that I had finished the hunter's turn, but nobody's on the river anyway, so no harm. We go into the boss phase. The good news is we have nothing for the event to resolve. The minions are going to bulk up because they're way too far away to charge, and simply just going to move because they already have defense. They're going to move 3 spaces to try to attack. They're not going to be able to because they're too far away, and there's no more elite, so we go right to the boss step. What's also very cool about keeping this grouping of minions alive and actually toying with them is the fact that if I can get my Gunslinger up close to them within range 0 to 1, he can gain a ton of bullets for 2 action tokens. When he's next to them, he gained 4, which is a massive amount of damage towards a potential card attack on the boss in the future. So they're on our way towards us. That resolves the minions. No elite, as I mentioned. The boss now is going to do the Wind Razor, attacking each hunter in line of sight from the boss with 2 dice. And actually, I just realized I goofed that up and I didn't check the Wind Razor properly. I thought it was within range 0 to 2, and I was like, oh, I'm safe there. It actually states line of sight from the boss, and our guys are actually in line of sight. Good thing they have some defense, though. So always keep an eye out for those attacks because it could be range and line of sight, just range or just line of sight. In this case, I slipped up and unfortunately I'm going to pay for it right now, and I caught it just in the nick of time. So here we go, Wind Razor coming at us, 2 white dice. We're going to go for the Technomancer first, has the most corruption, and let's see what happens. Probably not good. We got ourselves a, well, this one's kind of tilted on an angle, so we'll re-roll that one. It's probably going to be a wound anyway. No, it changed. So we actually get a safe on that one, which I re-rolled, and that's because it was cocked. And this one here is going to be 2 damage. But I do have defenses of 4, so that entire defense 4 is gone, and we take no damage. Good thing we shielded up. We're now going to go ahead and have the Gunslinger get an attack. Let's see how the Gunslinger fares. That is going to be, yikes, 4 damage, but I only have 2 defense, so 2 damage getting through. Gunslinger has 3 damage, Technomancer has 5 damage, and the row for the boss has moved down, but something new has been revealed. The final action has been revealed, and it states here, if this card is visible, which it is, take all boss attack cards from the discard pile, reshuffle them, and place them here. And if there are no boss attack cards in discard pile, draw and resolve this card. Our deck has been reshuffled. My aim now going forward is going to be trying to keep any cards from going into the discard pile, so that when that gets revealed the next time around, we go right to the final stage with the boss. Sounds like a dream, but it's good to have goals. Let's go to the time track here. We're going to activating of the tornadoes. The tornado is considered a hellish tornado, and you'll see you activate the first applicable. Now, our characters are certainly 4+ spaces away from the tornado, so we're going to be moving each hunter 2 spaces towards the boss. In the end, that's actually not all that bad based on what I'm trying to pull off. And because we avoided the range 0 to 1 or range 2 to 3, we don't have any white die rolling against us. First player marker moves to the Technomancer for this new game round, and we move into the evolution step. The Gunslinger has to slot all 5 corruption. We don't have a choice on this one, so they're all being placed in. Gunslinger is now officially corrupted. At this point, we're going to go ahead and grab a different miniature, which is going to represent the corrupted Gunslinger. You'll see that the health has gone up. These have stayed the same. And the abilities here says at the beginning of the Hunter's phase, you get to gain a bullet. So going forward, that is the passive that we get for being corrupted. Everything else remains the same. At this point, I'm not going to hold back any longer. Let's go ahead and place the corruption in the track. We're going to go and flip. I'm actually going to push myself up to 12 and cross my fingers. My Technomancer is now fully corrupted. We go up to 17 health. We have the same 2 movement. The power surge here says after you flip the corrupted Technomancer side, we immediately gain 1 more of these dies. Now inside the prototype, there are only 2 orange dice. There's a ton of all the other dice, but only 2 of the orange. So because of this, I'm going to have to just take a universal marker. We'll have to roll one of these orange dice twice, and I'll have to remember what that icon is on the universal marker. So we use a green universal marker to represent the orange die, and of course a roll in the future will determine what icon is on this. Now it also says down here, during your turn you can discard 1 gear symbol and now move 2 spaces when you do it instead of 1. And neither of my characters during this evolution step got to an unlock space, so no actual card or extra dice in that capacity, so we move on to the corruption step, which I'm a little bit more afraid of. We start off with the first player, and that's going to be the corrupted Technomancer. Let's see what comes off the deck here. We have 12, so where are we sitting? Gain 2 hunger or 3 weak, then reshuffle the corruption deck. See, this is going to get tough. I chose the 3 weak statuses instead of the 2 hunger. I do not like hunger. It's also hard to get rid of in general. So at this point, we reshuffle the corruption deck. We're drawing now for the Gunslinger. Let's see what we get. And it's 11 for the Gunslinger. So we are sitting at moving 2 spaces towards the closest minion. Then if there is a minion in range 0-1, discard it and gain 1 corruption. If this triggers evolution, resolve it immediately. Otherwise, gain a hunger. That corruption card was creepily accurate to how the setup is right now. So it's move 2 spaces towards the closest minion. So it's going to be this one right here. Gunslinger's coming down to this position from range 0 to 1, discarding this minion, which is awesome because it doesn't matter that it has defense. It's just being discarded and gone. We gain a corruption and we do get to evolve. And then it says, otherwise, if we couldn't have done that, we gain a hunger. So because we were able to do it exactly the way card stated, we don't gain the hunger. So the Gunslinger moves down, we gain the 1 Lament, going in the track to unlock and evolve. So we'll go ahead and draw a card, see what we get, and decide if we want this or the universal marker. This one says empty the magazine. We can deal 2 damage in range 0 to 2 and in line of sight. If you killed a minion or elite, you may move. That's pretty cool. Or deal 4 damage in range 0, then discard all of your action tokens. I was truly prepared to go ahead and take a universal marker, but that is so powerful, being able to deal 4 damage. And of course, that discarding of the action tokens only triggers once you do the attack here. So this is a huge card. I need to keep that. That's going to wrap up the corruption step. We now go into the refresh. All right, let's re-roll the dice and see how we do in the refresh. And of course, we'll have to re-roll one of these orange ones a second time. And that will be what that green one ends up being, because we ran out of orange dice. We'll take that one as a cleanse, which will probably hopefully happen more often than not. And that'll be for this symbol right here. We'll re-roll this one, see what we get. We got another cleanse. And when I say cleanse, I just simply mean that that icon typically is used for cleanse. Funny thing about the weak status is that it affects the refreshing of dice. So if we had 2 icons on any dice, we would then just re-roll the die and discard one of the weak tokens for each one we could as a double. We don't have any doubles, so these statuses do nothing to us right now, which is actually pretty good timing. We're going to go ahead and decide at this point, do we want to use cleanse icons, which we technically have 2 of, one here and this one representing one, to get rid of 2 of the weak. We probably do, to be completely honest, because they're not going to, or actually, you know what we could do? We could use 1 right now to get rid of 1 weak condition. And then what we'll do is we'll wait until the hunter's turn, and we'll use this in the cleanse spot to get rid of the other 2. Inside the hunter's turn, we use a die, and all the statuses have been cleared. I'm going to try something. I don't know if it's going to work out the way I hope it's going to, but I want to get some more double symbols on these dice. So I'm going to go ahead and use a tactic token right now to reroll everything in my available pool. Let's see how we do with this. Hopefully we give ourselves some other options. Now, also something we don't want to forget is at the beginning of the hunter's phase, we get a single bullet thanks to the passive here. So that's going to give us an extra damage later on during this turn. So let's go ahead and use this universal marker in order to do a move. Hunter's going to move 2 spaces north. Next, I'm going to place the gear symbol icon for a die on the Technomancer's gear armor card. That's going to give us the benefit of armor bonuses when using things off of this connected card here. So we're going to go ahead and do this next, which is going to be 2 symbols stacked because I don't have a double. So you can use 2 individual singles here to do 2 damage at range 1, 0 to 1, sorry. Then move all enemies in range 0 to 1 by up to 3 spaces. Also, one thing that I mentioned earlier in the video when we actually turned to our corrupted side is there are replacement miniatures and forgot to actually place them in play. So I've done that now. They look a lot more devastating. So 2 damage, I'm going to choose to place this damage on the Hurricane Vortex. I'm going to choose not to move any of the enemies during this time frame, but I do get the armor bonus that was below it. It says you may move by up to 3 spaces any enemies in range 0 to 1 or allies in range 0 to 1. Gunslinger moves in, gets the Lament, which is 2, placed on the dashboard. I'm going to now use one of my action tokens for the Gunslinger to do empty the magazine. The very top one says deal 2 damage in range 0 to 2 and line of sight. If you killed a minion or elite, you can move. Didn't kill either of those. And for that attack, I'm going to choose to place it on the Maelstrom card here. So 2 damage on that, which is great because it gets rid of the focused in the future. And we're working towards both at the same time. Now with my final 2 action tokens left on the Corrupted Gunslinger, I'm going to do the massive empty the magazine attack on the bottom that says deal 4 damage in range 0, then discard all your action tokens. And because I did them in that order, I have no more action tokens to spend. The other great thing is I have 1 bullet to add into that, which I choose to discard right now to a total of 5 damage. And I'm placing it all on the Hurricane Vortex. And just like that, another boss card eliminated. That does it for the Corrupted Gunslinger. We have nothing on the river to move south. We go to the Corrupted Necromancer, who still has a few dice. Let's slot some stuff in. And just before we go over there, I'll show you exactly where each of the tokens laid out on this board. So we had the move here. Then we went ahead and dealing the 2 damage at range 0 to 2 in line of sight. And then we did the big time deal 4 damage plus discarding of the bullet. We're now going to go ahead and use 2 of these icons right here to pay for this damage, which is at range 0 to 2, which I am. So 1 damage going against the boss. There is now 3 damage on that Maelstrom card as we're working towards it, and we still have 1 more die left to use. So I'm going to go ahead and use this in the armor slot, give myself 2 armor, and on top of it, get to trigger the armor bonus down below, which says you can move up to by up to 3 spaces away any enemies in range 0 to 1 or any allies in range 0 to 1. The boss does count as an enemy, and unless otherwise stated, you can move the boss with these effects, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to go ahead and move this boss in a way that when it goes ahead and tries to do its Wind Razor, it won't have line of sight like last time. I'm going to shuffle the boss further to the right, and hopefully in the future we can get through the portal we're close to, out the portal on the right-hand side, and stay up in that top right-hand corner and do some more hits. And what's kind of funny is that the boss ended his turn on the rushing river, which is now going to trigger because the Technomancer's turn is done, moving down 1 space south. That's going to do it for the Hunter's phase. We now move into the Enemy phase. Enemy phase begins. No event card, no charge coming from the minion. We go to bulk up. We have the defense there already. Moving 3, attacking range 0 to 1 with 1 white die. 3 minions heading towards the Technomancer. We have 3 dice being rolled against us, which is not going to be great, but we do have some defense. I have 2 defense on me, so I can use that against some of anything that gets thrown at me here. We got, all right, so first off, we're going to be dealt a burn, and we're going to be dealt 2 damage. Well, the 2 damage got sucked up by my defense. Now this is actually really unfortunate because I kind of goofed and just moved the boss really quickly without actually thinking about line of sight once again. So I'm going to retroactively move him in a position that he actually cannot hurt us because I had the ability to move him up to 3 spaces, and the way in which I moved him was again kind of a brain dead move. So basically he was in the same space as the gunslinger and I could have moved up to 3 in any direction. So retroactively, I'm going to move this boss to this position. So essentially, it was in the position with the gunslinger. It moves 3 spaces. Now it is not in line of sight of either one because it'd have to draw through the side of a hex to the hex in the middle of one of my hunters. We also shuffle things down the row, and we're doing a great job because we have nothing in the discard pile. We have 2 cards here. One still has 3 damage on it, so we can work towards it this turn. Going to the time track, we're moving along to the spawning of minions. We currently have 3 minions in play, 4 new ones coming in, so we start from position on the board 4, 5, 6, and 7. So overall, not too terrible. That's going to end off the boss turn. We're back around to the hunter's phase. New round to play. First player marker flips to the other hunter, and we're going to place this to Lament. We have to place it in the corruption track. And we can't evolve in the evolution step at the moment, so we go to the corruption step. We're going to go ahead and start with the corrupted gunslinger for the first one. At 14, we have a card that states spawning 1 minion in range 0, then reshuffle the corruption deck. The new minion has to come in at range 0, so it's in the same space as the gunslinger. We've also reshuffled the corruption deck for the technomancer, who is drawing now at 12. It says move 2 spaces towards the closest minion. Then if there is a minion in range 0 to 1, discard it, gain a corruption. If this triggers an evolution, resolve it immediately. Otherwise, get a hunger. This is perfect, again, because we are 1 step away from an evolution. So I move in, we kill off that minion, we gain the Lament, and we immediately do an evolution. This could be good news. Let's see how it goes. We'll place that one we just gained in here, unlocking. We get 2 cards off the top of the deck. We got teleporting device. That sounds pretty cool. We have electric arc. That also sounds pretty cool. Or we could go with a die. Both those cards are pretty cool, but I prefer to have an extra die. I'm going to go with a green one this time. We head into the refresh step, and we're going to re-roll one of these dice twice, and one of the symbols will go here for this green universal marker as you've seen before. Let's see how we do. We got lots of dice going into this roll. So this marker will become this gear symbol here, and we're going to go ahead and re-roll it to find out what we get for the other one, and we got this. Going into the cleanse step, let's get rid of this icon and die, discarding it in order to get rid of this burn so it doesn't trigger and hurt us. We're now going to move into the hunter's turn right now. I'm going to use a token to deal 2 damage in range 0 to 2 with the gunslinger in line of sight, so I'm going to kill the minion in my space, and if I kill that minion, which I'm going to, you can move. I gain Lament, I move 2 spaces, so I'm right next to the boss and in line of sight. I'm going to go ahead and gain an additional bullet. Remember, I get 1 bullet at the beginning of this turn already, thanks to being corrupted, so I have 2 bullets now. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the deal 2 damage at range 1 in line of sight and discard 2 bullet tokens to make this a 4 damage hit, and I'm going to hit that Maelstrom card, which already has 3, and that's going to eliminate it. My main goal is to make sure that nothing is going to land in that discard pile, so 4 more damage on this card removes it. And my Corrupted Gunslinger still has 1 action token left, but we're going to flip over to the Corrupted Technomancer. We'll start things off by slotting this gear die into the gear armor, so we get to take advantage of armor bonuses when we do other things on here. Next, we're going to go ahead and place a shield up here, gaining 2 armor, and we get the bonus down below. It says you can move by up to 3 spaces any enemies in range 0 to 1 or any allies in range 0 to 1. The ones I'm moving are definitely enemies. We've currently got 3 enemies in range 0 to 1. I'm moving all of them 3 spaces. So that repulse is going to help me in terms of when the minions actually activate, they'll be further away. My Technomancer comes out of the portal, moving to here to end off the sprint, and I'm going to go ahead now and use a token in order to move. That's going to give me an additional movement. I'm going to move myself right into the same space as this minion. I'm going to use the Electro Gauntlet, using these 2 dice right here to slot in for 2 damage, which is way more than I need at range 0 to wipe out this minion. Then I'm going to use this die right here in order to pull off dealing 1 damage in range 0 to 2. We're going to take out this minion here. And that's another Lament on the game board. Now we have 1 more die left with the Technomancer and 1 more action left with the Gunslinger. So I want to try to pull something off. Maybe we can hit a boss, maybe we can hit a minion. It's actually kind of sad because I could technically have my Technomancer give an assist over to the Gunslinger to have 2 action tokens to put inside that empty the magazine for 4 damage, but I have to be inside the same space as the boss for the Gunslinger, which I'm currently not, so that's really unfortunate. Wish I could pull that off. Instead, what I'll do is I'll just place the Corrupted Technomancer's die in the Tactics slot to gain that back so we have a reroll. And in terms of the Gunslinger, I really don't think there's anything we can do here because we've already gained a bullet and there's nothing else. Everything else costs too much. So we'll stop right there. Going into the enemy phase, no event to resolve. Going here, we definitely have some minions nearby, and one of them is actually in range 3 of actually both of my hunters. So it's going to go after the one with the most corruption, and the most corruption would be the Gunslinger. That's certainly not good news, so it's going to move right through the boss spawn and into my gunslinger's area. And it's going to come in with 2 white dice, and I have no defense whatsoever on the corrupted gunslinger, so I'm taking whatever this thing throws at me, which is going to be, it looks like, a total of 2 damage. The gunslinger is up to a total of 5 damage, and that's going to resolve that one. The other minions are too far away. They're definitely not going to be doing any charging and attacking. They'll be bulking up. So first off, this minion down here is going to bulk up. The other ones are already good to go. This one here is going to choose based on corruption. It's going to be heading towards the gunslinger. The good news is it's not in range 0 to 1 to be able to make an attack against the gunslinger, so nothing going to happen there, and the other ones are going to move. And these ones can equally go around to the left side or right side to get to my gunslinger, so I'm going to choose to have them go to the left side to keep them out of the equation. We're also not out of the woods yet with my gunslinger because now the Wind Razor is going to hit the poor gunslinger. So we're going to have to be really careful here the corrupted gunslinger doesn't take on too much damage too fast here. We got ourselves 2 symbols which do not land at all on the Wind Razor. If that wasn't a sign, I don't know what is. We go to the time track. We've already moved things down the row. Time track's going up to a new stage card coming off the top. This card sounds pretty bad. It's called Tempest Wrath. It says place the card near the event deck, which I've done. There's an additional permanent event that stays in play until the end of the game. Don't discard this or replace it with another event. Resolve it during the enemy boss step 1 event. At the end of the boss step 1 event, activate all tornadoes. So after we deal with this, we're going to have tornadoes moving a lot more often. The Technomancer now becomes the first player, and we have to place corruption in the track, so the gunslinger has to put it in. We have to decide on the Technomancer. I'm going to be aggressive and place everything inside. We're now going to move to the corruption step, so we're drawing cards based on our corruption. Let's go ahead and draw for the corrupted Technomancer first. I might have called this individual a Necromancer a few times during this play so far. We got 15. Let's see. Deal 2 damage to each ally in range 0 to 1. Are we close to each other? No, we're not. So great time to pull that card. Excellent. The Gunslinger is up next. Let's see, at 15. This one's going to be, high up there. Gain a hunger. Each ally in range 0 to 2 gains 1/2. Thankfully, we're not close to each other, so just 1 hunger condition going to the Gunslinger. All right, let's go ahead and refresh things. We'll grab our dice and do our roll and do the re-roll of the orange one as we've done so far. Let's see what we do here. We got a gear symbol, so that's what this one's going to be, and we're going to re-roll one of these, see what we get instead. Another gear symbol. The cleanse step hits, but we can't do any cleansing at all. The only status we have on the Gunslinger, it is the hunger. We cannot deal with it at this point in time because it is the deputy and has no dice to discard icon-wise. So we head to the Hunter's turn, and as we move into the Hunter's turn, we gain a bullet for the corrupted Gunslinger, but we also are going to have to deal with the triggering of the hunger. Let's see what the effect does. I believe it's not going to hurt me. This one says, at the beginning of the Hunter's turn, move one space towards the closest ally, then deal that much damage to the ally in range 0. So basically, it's just going to have me move closer to the corrupted Technomancer, but it's going to do nothing for damage. And talk about perfect timing to do that, because it's going to have me move right into the boss space. And that puts me in great position to be able to do some big time damage with my Empty the Magazine card. We got an opportunity to do something pretty cool, so let's go ahead and try and clear out as many minions and do some damage to the boss as we possibly can. So the first one I'm going to do is dealing 1 damage in range 2 to 4 in line of sight. Then I'll do a 2 damage hit at range 1 and in line of sight. So we're going to completely wipe out the minion on the opposite side of that terrain piece that's hiding back behind the boss. And then we're going to do 1 hit against the 2 defense minion beside me, which is just going to remove the defense. I've also gained a Lament, and we're going to go ahead now and use the top section of the Empty the Magazine card, dealing 2 damage at range 0 to 2. I can move after I kill a minion in this case, but I'm going to choose not to because I plan to do a big time hit against the boss. Gunslinger also gets another Lament and is going to go ahead right now and take an assist from the corrupted Necromancer in order to get the other action token to be able to use both of these tokens that he has left in order to deal 4 damage plus discard a bullet that he has from the very beginning of his turn for a total of 5 damage on the airburst. So overall, a very successful hit against the airburst, which will stop the focus from triggering, and we're working on actually eliminating this card completely. This should be a really fun turn. We're going to go ahead right off the hop here and sprint. That's going to get my Technomancer into the exact same space as the boss. That is going to force the Gunslinger to be pushed out into a space next to it. I'm going to choose to push the Gunslinger out and move it northeast. Now that I'm inside there, I'm going to do something very cool for both of my characters. I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 shield dice as well as 1 gear symbol to pull off my gear armor ability to give myself 4 defense. So basically I convert the 2 that I have on my Technomancer. Only when you gain 4 do you get to replace it with the bigger one. So replacing the Technomancers with a 4, and I get to give to an ally in 0 to 1 range a 2 defense. So now we both have some defense. Next, we're going to go ahead and make an attack here. I'm going to use my Electro Gauntlet in order to deal 2 damage damage in range 0 because I'm in the space. It's also going to allow me to refresh this die that I just used for the defense back into my pool, and that's going to eliminate the last card, or the card in the this turn slot. And just like that, another 2 damage, and that is another card eliminated. And that's another boss card removed, and Lament of 3 gained for both of my hunters. So we just took out this card right here, and we got our Lament on our character boards, but one thing I just remembered is when I took out the card prior to that, in the last round, we didn't take the Lament, from my understanding. I went back and took a look, and so because of that, there might have been an impact just in terms of the corruption deck, but I can't retroactively change that at this point, but I can give myself 3 additional Lament for each character right now. At this point, it's going to completely max out my Gunslinger, and the Corrupted Technomancer is going to have decisions to make. I still have things that I want to try and accomplish this round, so let's see if we can put some small hits against the boss. I'm going to use a tactic token right now. We're going to go ahead and re-roll all these ones over here. This one is a gear symbol, so I'll have to re-roll that as part of the pool too. And I'm really just hoping to see some more of either the double swords or potentially that gear and the arrow icon. That's what I'm aiming for. And we actually got one, which is good. We got this. That's actually not a bad roll. So let's re-roll. We'll say that this is the... this symbol right here, and we're going to re-roll this one right now. There we go, got another one. So I'm going to choose to go ahead and use those 2, which have those symbols on it, in order to cover up the repulse over here. That's going to deal 2 damage to the boss. We'll place it on the Dust Devil card. Now I also have another icon up here I could make use of, which is pretty good. We'll place it up here for another damage. At this point, what I'm going to do is use this in the tactic slot in order to get my die back for a reroll in the future, and I don't have anything else I can use this for. I don't plan to do any movement. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Actually, you know what? Let's actually do that move. Let's go ahead and make one move. We'll go ahead and place ourselves right next to the Gunslinger. Now, I'm not too sure this is going to be a good idea depending on the corruption cards that might come out, but I kind of want to get them away from the tornado and any of the other minions left. There's only 2 left. And for the ends of both of those hunters' turns, there was nothing on the river to move south. Enemy phase begins. Step 1 is an event card, and in this case it tells us, because we had the Tempest Wrath beside it, when we're done the event, which we don't have one to resolve, which is right now, we go ahead and activate all tornadoes. Now the Hellish Tornado states if a hunter is in range 4+, move each hunter 2 spaces towards the boss. So technically only one of them can get inside the boss's space. And knowing that I prefer to have the Gunslinger in the space because he can do that 4 damage attack, I've moved the Gunslinger in. It's funny noting that the corruption's equal for both of my characters, and the wounds are also both at 5. Minions are going to go, and in this case, we're going to have them split around to both sides because the corruption's equal, so I can choose wherever they want to go, and I'm going to choose to have them one go up against each of them equally. So this is a bulk up, by the way, so they're rolling 1 white die each against each of them. So we're going to have this one hitting the Gunslinger right here. Let's see what happens. We have a scratch, so the defense that I have is going to block all of that, nothing there. And then same with the Corrupted Necromancer, or I should say Technomancer, also getting an attack, but also having 4 shields able to block that attack, nothing coming through. Unfortunately, the Wind Razor is going to come through for the Corrupted Gunslinger and also for the Corrupted Technomancer because they are being way too aggressive right now. So we're going to go for the attack against the Corrupted Gunslinger first and see what happens. We got ourselves a burn and also 2 damage. Corrupted Technomancer is up next. Let's see what we get. And we have the exact same thing. Boss card resolve, we move things down the row. We have 3 damage on this 8 health card. We need to work on that one next. We're doing a great job of keeping things out of the discard area and also maintaining roughly decent health. We now go to the time track and we're going to have a new event for the first time in a bit. This is going to be an interesting one. This one's a Dust Storm, so each hunter that has a die on the assist action is going to gain a stun. So if we continue to try with the Technomancer to assist the Gunslinger, it's not going to be good for us. So we can still do it, but if we get a stun, you place a stun token on a chosen unoccupied action, and as long as the stun occupies that action, it's unavailable. First player marker is over to the Gunslinger at this point. Evolution step begins. We have to put all of this Lament inside the corruption, which means at this point we have now unlocked. We're going to evolve one more time, and that's going to do it. We're going to go all the way to the very end of the track. For the evolve, this is a critical hit. It sounds pretty good. It has a decent passive down here as well. But to be completely honest, now that we have the Dust Storm going on, I kind of feel like just going to town with the universal markers so that the Gunslinger on its own can do a lot of damage. Got another universal marker. My track is completely corrupted to the very highest level. Can't take any more Lament at this point. For the Technomancer, I have no drive to get to 20, so I'm just going to go ahead and take 1 to get a unlock, and we're going to take the rest and discard them. This one's called Tesla Knows. You can deal damage in range 0 to 1. If you killed an enemy or removed a boss attack card, you may discard a die to resolve this action again. That's kind of cool. The ability again pushes on the movement, and this one here says after you finish a move or teleport action during the hunter's phase, you may discard a die, a specific one, to deal damage in range 0-1. You know what? I actually still might lean towards getting another die. And I think I'm going to choose to take a purple die here, which is pretty good on this side of the equation. Also has a shield in there mixed in, so it's not bad. Let's go ahead and refresh everything. We have a ton of dice to roll and one reroll off the orange because of this one down here. So we got this symbol. We'll leave it as a gear symbol as we've been getting that pretty often. And then, oh, nice. The Technomancer gets rid of a die here in order to get rid of the condition of the burn, so nothing bad happening there. But the Gunslinger is going to take a wound for the burn, and the burn is still there. Let's try to get rid of one minion and also hit the boss if we can. So we're going to go ahead and do a dealing of 1 damage in range 2 to 4. So that'll work perfectly. 1 damage will take off one of the shields of one of the 2 minions around me. And then we'll go ahead and deal 2 damage, as I think that's probably the best one to use. I don't really want to use 3 for this one, even though it's a cool effect, in order to kill the minion off. We would normally gain a Lament, but it doesn't matter at this point because we're completely maxed out. Next up, I'm going to choose to do something that might actually kind of hurt me here. Now, I could go ahead and use this for a cleanse. Maybe I will. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and use this on the cleanse in order to get rid of the burn here. So we'll take that status out. And then we'll go ahead and we'll deal 4 damage. We will take away the bullet, so make it 5, which is enough. 5 on top of the 3 we already have in the Dust Devil will wipe that boss card out. So another big time hit from the Gunslinger. That is 5 damage on there, enough to take that card out. And we each gain 4 Lament. Not going to bother with the Corrupted Gunslinger, but we'll place it on the Technomancer because he's not maxed yet. Doing pretty good overall, and if I want to be safe with the Corrupted Gunslinger, I could do an assist from the Technomancer down the line here, maybe, and I probably will do it in order for them to, or the Gunslinger to sprint 3 away to be outside the range of the Windrazor. Now, I know when we get to the next boss turn that we're going to reveal that final boss card we've seen once before, and at that point in time prior, we had to shuffle the boss attack deck that was in the discard back into the attack deck. But this time we have no discard pile because I've been eliminating cards like a crazy person, so we're going to go right to that final stage. So I don't really have to focus on the Hurricane Vortex, which is sitting in the next turn position. It's not going to be a factor. It's better for me to try to kill off the annoying minion, which is still sitting around. I'm going to do a 1 damage attack to take off the defense it has, and then another 2 damage attack, which will wipe out that minion. We have no more minions in play. We have no elites in play. We only have the tornado and the boss at this point. We have a whole bunch more dice to spend. Now, knowing that we have a big turn coming up, I'm going to go ahead and shield up. We're going to go ahead and do this. We're within 1 of each other, so I can actually help an ally out as well, giving myself 4 shields and my ally 2 shields. That's going to work to our advantage when the boss hits us back. And at this point in time, I want to stay close to the boss. I have no reason to necessarily do anything else. I already have the tactic here. We're good on this side of the equation. The only thing I could think of doing, to be completely honest, is maybe doing a move towards the 2 chests on the board to see if we get lucky for some healing on both counts. Now, we know if we want the Gunslinger to take advantage of that, I need to give an assist from the Technomancer, which again ties to the Dust Storm, which will provide a stun to the Technomancer. So not too sure if I want to even do that with the Gunslinger, but maybe we'll try it here on the Technomancer. Maybe we'll head north. So we'll do a regular move action here to go up there and take that token. And just to make things clear, I've gone ahead and moved the boss just so you can actually see the token when it's flipped over. And we got ourselves a heal 4, or each hunter gaining a Lament, or each hunter gaining some shields. I'm obviously going to take the heal 4. That's going to bring me back to 3 damage only on the Technomancer. And you know what? It might be worthwhile. Let's go ahead and do an assist anyway. So I'm going to give that assist from the Technomancer. So I have 2 dice left after doing the assist. The extra marker is now going to go over here on the move, which is all I really need to do for the Gunslinger to check out this one right here. And the stun effect's not going to come from the event card until we're in the enemy phase. So we reveal this treasure here, and we have a heal 4. We can gain a purple die or remove all 2 and 4 defense from all enemies. Gunslinger is going to take the heal. At this point, we have 4 damage on the Gunslinger and 3 on the Corrupted Technomancer. Now, knowing that I have my defenses up, I'm going to go ahead and use a die right now to do a sprint for the Technomancer to walk right into the same space as the boss. I don't care. I want to be right there, so at the very beginning of the next turnaround, I can just start unleashing all kinds of damage. Technomancer's in position. Gunslinger is in good line of sight, which is perfect. And at this point, we're going to stop. I have 1 die left. I won't end up using it. At this point, the Dust Storm is going to trigger, and because there is a die in the assist action, I'm going to gain 1 stun. I can place this on any slot that I want. I'm going to choose to go ahead and maybe we'll place it on the tactic slot, because I don't think I'll be using it anytime soon. I'll probably be able to clear it later anyway. There are no minions left in play. The elites are gone. We're going right to the boss. When razor attack's going to happen, it's based on line of sight. Both my hunters fall into that criteria. We'll have the gunslinger take the first hit. 2 white dice, but I do have 2 defense, so hopefully I can block whatever's coming here. We got ourselves an icon that exists. Oh, it's a burn, and then the other one is going to be 2 damage, so the 2 damage will be blocked, but the burn comes through. The Technomancer is up next. Let's see if the Windracer gets through the 4 defense, and we got a symbol that's not there, and a dealing of 2 damage, which is blocked by the 4 defense. My friends, I've been waiting for this moment for the entire game. We've successfully revealed the final action for Convergence. It says if this card is visible, take all the boss attack cards from the discard pile, reshuffle them, and place them here. If there are no boss attack cards in the discard pile, which are not, draw and resolve this card. We got the Last Breath card. It says when you draw this card, place it in the this turn slot. So this is going to be the new this turn card, and remove all remaining boss attack cards. This card cannot be discarded from this turn slot. The aim is to get 10 damage on this thing. We are now down to just a final card for a victory. Now, just before I get a little too excited, I forgot about the Tempest Wrath, which should have triggered right after Step 1 event. So we'll go ahead retroactively and do that right now. Shouldn't have any impact on gameplay. So this is at the end of the boss, Step number 1 event, activate all tornadoes. Let's go ahead and do that based on the Hellish Tornado up there in the top right. This is actually going to be really interesting because the tornadoes are going to get a chance to activate twice this round, because right after I resolve this one from the Tempest Wrath, then the time track's going to move to activating all tornadoes again. So my gunslinger right now is 3 spaces away from the tornado. So inside of range 2 to 3, you move the tornado and it moves 3. So it's going to get right into the exact same space as me. And then it says deal 1 burn to each hunter in range 0 from a tornado and attack them with 1 white die. So we're getting a burn on the gunslinger. Nobody else is close around, which is good. But 1 white die coming our way, and that's going to be a scratch for 3 damage. So in a way, we almost negated that by picking up the chest in the first place. So not too sure if that was even worth it, because what's really unfortunate now is after resolving retroactively that Step 1 event, Tempest Wrath, again, now at the time track, we're going to move it. It goes to activating all tornadoes, and the exact same thing's going to happen. But here's the worst part. Now the tornado is range 0 to 1 from the hunter. It's going to attack with 3 white dice. That is a lot of damage, so here's hoping I can survive this. This is not good and was quite unexpected. Let's see how we do. Okay, so we got a safe one there. This one here is going to deal 2 damage in a burn. This one's going to deal 3 damage. My friends, we are sitting on the edge of death here, and what's absolutely crazy is the fact that when we get through this boss turn and we head into the hunter's phase, we're guaranteed to take 3 more damage. And guess what that's going to do? It's going to bring it up from 9, 12 to 15, 1 away from a death. Absolutely insane that we are sitting on the edge of a knife right now. I still am kind of reeling over that, because if we hadn't have got that miss on one of those 3 white dice, this would have been over right here and there. So that would have been pretty brutal, but we're still trucking along somehow. The hunter's phase is up next. The first player marker, I've already moved it over to the Technomancer. Evolution step comes. We have 5 over here with the Technomancer. I have no reason to put these in the track. I don't even want to, because I think we have enough to do 10 damage if we just focused all our attack on the boss. So I'm just going to simply, at this point, just say, nope, we're not dropping it in there. I don't want to increase my risk any more than it already is. We're going to move right into the corruption step. So the first person we'll pull for is the Technomancer here, and we're going to draw and see what we get. We're at 16. Let's see what the first card is. It says gain 2 hunger or 3 weak, then reshuffle this deck. I obviously had to choose the weak statuses in that case, because there is no way I was going to get any kind of hunger that would have the Technomancer come over and take out the Gunslinger. So in this case, we now go to the Corruption deck, which has been reshuffled, and we're drawing for the Gunslinger. This is a big one. We got ourselves 20. We're maxed out. This is the moving of 2 spaces. Oh, this is different. Move 2 spaces toward the closest ally, then deal 4 damage to each ally in range 0 to 1. If you dealt damage, you get to heal 2. That's a plus. If there are no allies in range, gain a hunger. Oh, wow. Okay, in 2 spaces, yes, we can definitely go after the Technomancer. Thank goodness. The stress is certainly mounting, so at this point we'll move 2 spaces right into the boss space, which again is a benefit for us, but the downside is we're hitting the Technomancer, but that's better than the Gunslinger being hit. So if that card hadn't been drawn for the Technomancer, that would have been a game over scenario. All right, so we walk in, we deal 4 damage to each ally in range, and we dealt 4 damage, so we get to heal 2, which actually gives us some breathing room, thank goodness, on the Gunslinger. Corruption step is now done. Into the refresh step we go. The stress is mounting here. We're going to go ahead and roll these dice for the Corrupted Technomancer and see how we do. Let me roll these around real good because I got a lot of them in my hand at this point. I'm going to count this die right here as a gear symbol and re-roll this one. Now at this point in time, we only got one double symbol, so we're going to be re-rolling this as we're forced to do so. We can remove one weak status because of the re-roll. And we could choose in the cleanse step right now if we wanted to spend these two symbols to get rid of the other weak ones. But to be completely honest, we could just place one in here if we wanted to, or hold on to these because we could use them in the repulse, which is preferable. So I'm not going to bother. I'm going to leave those weak ones in there because we're a-okay for now and go all out with this turn. Now what does happen is the burns over here are going to trigger. We go into the hunter's turn. So all three of these are going to provide a burn to the Corrupted Gunslinger, who now has a total of 13 damage at a 16 health. The Gunslinger overall is just very mad at this point and is probably going to go ahead right now and just spend one here to gain a bullet. And I already gained one bullet from the start of the turn thanks to the passive, so I have two. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a 2 damage attack here. We'll discard these two. That's going to be 4 damage. We are working our way up the card, and the Gunslinger really wants to be the one to take out this boss because he was so close to death. We're going to go ahead and use one here to deal 2 damage at range 1. So that's another 2 on here for a total of 6. And then the last one, we're going to put these 2 in here to deal 4 damage at range 0. He's in the same space, and that's going to do it. We have taken out the Convergence. And that, my friends, is how you pull off a victory inside of Grimcoven coming from Awaken Realms. There were certainly many turning points throughout the gameplay, but you'll see based on this gameplay, comparing against my previous one, that the very beginning portions of the game are very, very important to get your strategy down and not make small mistakes in that early game. If you do, it costs you big time in the long run. If you actually set yourself up well at the beginning of the game, your future becomes brighter. Now, there's tons of twists and turns that come out here, and I've played this one off camera multiple times. You'll have different secret cards that will pop at you and have things change. You'll have different conditions and effects. We didn't see every single boss stage card. We certainly didn't see every corruption thing trigger. There's so many different things that can potentially happen here that you can replay this scenario and have a completely different experience. Long story short, this revenge play was absolutely worth it. It was a ton of fun to do, and I really hope this helps you see a fully detailed playthrough of the game to help you make an informed decision as to whether or not this is for you, and to also show you that it absolutely is possible to pull off a victory in this game. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you noticed anything, and if you have any thoughts in general, would love to hear the feedback. And as always, keep on rolling solo.